I'd like to remember two great and courageous men, courageous in both battle and in vision and peace. And I'm talking about Menachem Begin, who was the Prime Minister of Israel, and Anwar Sadat, who was the President of Egypt. And these two bitter, longtime enemies came together in the name of peace at the Camp David Accords in 1978 and reached peace in 1979. And in the process knew that they were facing great opposition from extremists. And in point of fact, Anwar Sadat paid with his life as he was assassinated by Islamic jihadists who opposed peace with Israel. Before I go on, I want to make this point. I hear frequently, we all hear frequently, that the fight between the Jews and Arabs is over land. It most assuredly is not. Israel would willingly give up land for peace. And the proof of the pudding is the peace agreement with Egypt and Anwar Sadat in 1979. In previous videos, I've talked about Gaza originally being part of Egypt and Israel obtaining Gaza as a consequence of the '67 war. Gaza is actually part of a much bigger land area called the Sinai Desert, which is part of Egypt. Israel obtained the entirety of the Sinai Desert in the 1967 war and held it up until the peace agreement. And Israel returned the Sinai as part of the peace agreement, returned it to Egypt, with the exception of Gaza, which is the furthest point up, closest, and in Israel, now in Israel. And that's because, as I've talked about, Egypt did not want to have the Palestinians in Gaza back, did not want to take them back. But the point is, Israel returned the Sinai, which happens also to be very rich in oil reserves. So land has nothing to do with the ultimate issue. The ultimate issue is two people getting along. And going back to the relationship between Anwar Sadat and Menachem Begin, it's important to note that by all accounts, not only they, but their wives, they all became very close to one another. They spent considerable time together at each other's homes in Israel and in Egypt. And in some photos and videos I've seen, you can just see the warmth exuding from them and the embrace. There's nothing feigned. And so often, people demonize one another without meeting face to face. And when people sit down and get together and break bread and share stories about friends and family, they start to realize how, by and large, most of us have more in common with one another than we have differences. And so it's extremely important to have strong, courageous leadership by people who are willing to overcome obstacles and try to forge new friendships. You've seen me dressed generally casually in other videos. Remembering these two fine gentlemen merits the utmost respect, and so I'm wearing my navy blue blazer, my navy and blue tie, which belonged to my father, who passed away some 34 years ago. And it's a tie that I don on certain very sincere occasions or solemn occasions. And it happens, I wore it last week when I went to Shiva, sat by a very dear friend of mine and his family, Elliot Nachmias, whose father just passed away. And Elliot is just a wonderful person who is courageous in battle and peace, as was his father, who fought in the IDF in the 1967 war. And so I remember them fondly, and I remember, of course, my father fondly.